each other. It's a first. But we are already looking through the pages, and we're going to take you through some of the front pages, some of the stories inside now, with the Sun's Deputy Political Editor, Ryan Sabey, and Community Editor for the National, Shona Craven. So very good morning to both of you. And you picked out the Times to start off with, and this is really focusing on the impact of the Iranian war back here at home, isn't it, Ryan? And the Chancellor really mindful that prices are going up because of the spike in oil prices.
Yeah, and there's one sort of big issue on the horizon when it comes to energy bills is the price cap. That gets reassessed every 3 months. And it seems that could go up by £300 when the new price comes in July. And all this, what is the intervention that the government need to do? Now, one thing here that the Chancellor, she's done an interview with the Times overnight, and she says there will be targeted support for households. Now, the first thing that she's going to be announcing next week is help when it comes to high prices on heating oil, which isn't protected by the cap. And then it seems further down the line there may be some help for poorer households when it comes to the energy bills itself. So if there is that gap to be made, the prices go up by £300, she may intervene. But I think the warning sign will be that it's targeted. It's not going to be universal like what happened before with Liz Truss and that £40 billion, helping out families. It's going to be very, very limited because the public finances just can't sustain it.
Shona, other levers they can pull, because you hear from some of the energy companies themselves talking about wanting to get rid of the standing daily charge, not having the price of electricity dictated by the price of gas. Are they looking at these other things too?
Well, these things have been talked about in recent months and years because of the cost of energy, and in a panic is probably not the time when it's going to happen. Unfortunately, I think what this really sets out is the impact, obviously, on global events on us, but also the delay, because it was actually, I think, 3 days before this war began that we heard the good news that our price cap was falling by 7%, and then almost immediately people are thinking, actually, this doesn't make sense, but this isn't going to kick in until June. But when it does kick in, people are now thinking, oh no, we're back to where we were before with a massive hike. So, yeah, Rachel Reeves is saying, I have found the money, which, to me, I find that a not very reassuring phrase, because did you reach behind the back of the couch, for this money? But as Ryan says, it's not going to be a free-for-all. Here's £300 for everyone to cope with this rise. It's going to have to be targeted.
Well, yeah, and just very briefly, Brian, the heating oil issues, it was quite a big one, especially for rural constituencies, wasn't it? There was a sense that there were lots of Labour MPs as well that were pushing for help for these people whose prices have already, I think, doubled in some cases.
There's been a lot of pressure and I think there's been lots of conversations behind the scenes about it this week. But there is a quote here from Rachel Reeves saying, I found the money, but it's only going to amount to tens of millions of pounds. It'd be quite frustrating or questionable if they couldn't find tens of millions of pounds. I mean, that is loose change when it comes to, a country's budget when it's over £1 trillion. So thankfully we can find that amount of money. The trouble will be down the line if she needs to find £2 or £3 billion.
Let's turn our attention to the front page of The Guardian. Europe rebukes the US for easing Russia oil ban, Shona. And look, before yesterday, we already knew Russia was doing well out of the war because the price of oil going up means the people who buy Russian oil, India, China, for example, were paying more for it. And now, with the easing of sanctions on them by the US, means that Putin is going to do even better.
Yes, exactly that. And I think what's interesting in this story is that the headline is saying that Europe is rebuking the US. But if we look at the quote from Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper, it says she decries what she said was Russia and Iran's attempt to hijack the global economy. Well, who's helping with that attempt? Obviously, Donald Trump. So what's notable there is the lack of criticism of the US from lifting this sanction, which I think, they're talking about that, it's just a very short period of time we're doing this from. But if you actually add up the benefit, the economic benefit to Russia, which obviously can then go directly into its military efforts against Ukraine. It's terrifying, and that's assuming it does last for 30 days. We have no idea. We were told on Monday by Donald Trump this war was essentially over. Well, obviously, that wasn't true. And now we see that Russia are benefiting, and I just can't even imagine what people from Ukraine are making of that and thinking, well, Donald Trump is not with us. He is with Russia. He's helping them.
Yeah, and the Yvette Cooper line is interesting, isn't it? And I spoke to an energy minister yesterday who again said, we don't agree, we wouldn't do the same thing, but they won't be drawn on a criticism of Donald Trump. Again, it's that sort of that fine line, going a different way, but not overtly
Yeah,
criticised.
I was quite surprised at the sort of mealy-mouthed language from Downing Street yesterday, mainly because, throughout, the last few prime ministers, whether it's Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer, they've all been very sort of heavy on Russia. And then, but the criticism, there was very little, barely any criticism, or even, thinly veiled criticism of America. And it kind of undermines that whole war effort that we've had for the last, 3 or 4 years. Even Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, says the decision was wrong. It felt like Britain wasn't even going that far.
Yeah, they've got to walk a fine line at the moment, haven't they, really? I think that's the issue. You said, Shona, that Russia is benefiting. I think I saw it's £150 million, or dollars rather, a day.
Yeah.
That they're
Also because the oil
benefiting
price is so high as well.
Because the oil price is so high. So
multiply that by even 30, and it's not a trivial amount of money
Not at
for
all.
those 30 days. I noticed that, inside the Guardian, it says Trump is quoted as saying Putin might be helping a little bit, in regards to reports from the US that Russia was providing targeted information for Iran for attacking American forces during the conflict. And so it's hard not to see that as a quid pro quo. You're helping us with this operation, and so we're going to help you, even though in theory we're supposed to be on the side of Ukraine.
by the same token, it's interesting that Ukraine has been helping with intelligence on how to deal with Russian and Iranian-made drones as well, right? I mean, as if they haven't got enough on their hands, they're also offering some assistance with intelligence in the Middle East as well. Should we turn to the Daily Express? Because their response to these rising energy prices is to get drilling and to stop soaring bills. I think they mean in the North Sea, don't they?
Yes, and I mean, this is typical from the Express and indeed from Reform UK, hoping that people will see this headline and go, oh yes, that makes sense. If only we could just get drilling tomorrow, that'll solve everything, and UK consumers will have lower bills. Of course, that's not how the global oil market works. There is not a discount for people in the UK or indeed Scotland because the oil is coming from the North Sea. But this shows how whatever's going on, Reform will try to exploit it. They've changed their position, I think, on Iran within maybe a day last week. Oh, we should be joining this. Oh, no, it's pushing up bills. We shouldn't be encouraging it. And it just shows that they're all over the place and cynically trying to exploit this to get votes, including in the upcoming Scottish Parliament elections, even though it's not nearly as simple and the logic does not follow of what they're arguing.
Well, yeah, and the government are saying that we're going to try and gain our energy security by going green, and that will give us domestic security. But there are people who are going to see headlines like this and think it does make sense, North Sea, off our shores. If we drill more, is there not a means by which we can ring-fence in time of emergency our own oil for our own use?
And I think this is going to be, this is one of the battlegrounds, and it will be over the coming years. If there is a resource there, can you not drill in there or make more explorations into the North Sea in the coming years just to ease the problems? The big issue about getting to net zero by 2050, is it too soon? Is it too costly? And these headlines will, raise, concerns about maybe there is a little bit more scope for going into new oil fields in the North Sea just in the short term to ease problems when there are major issues like this and the price of oil just spikes.
You talk about is net zero too soon. There'll be people who see another story in the papers today about how rapidly glaciers are receding in the Austrian mountains and say maybe it isn't too soon. Maybe we need to bear that in mind for the long term. Let's switch stories because the Daily Mail's front page is not about the situation in Iran and all the ramifications of that. Starmer's dereliction of duty is their headline, accompanied by what they call an astonishing picture of the former Prince Andrew, Jeffrey Epstein and Peter Mandelson.
Yeah, and I think what happened here yesterday, there's been obviously the big release of files, 147 pages that came out this week. And what it has emerged is that Keir Starmer, despite all the warning signs and the red flags of Lord Mandelson's links to Jeffrey Epstein, he didn't actually get him in to talk to him or have any kind of formal interview, despite all these warning signs. And Kemi Badenoch has overnight has said this is a dereliction of duty. It just seems incredible that there's that lack of curiosity from anyone in Downing Street, or particularly Keir Starmer, to actually get him in to actually talk to him.
Well, and yet, I mean, this is obviously going to be an uncomfortable photograph, and we should just reiterate once again that the people concerned, Lord Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor deny any wrongdoing, and being in a photograph and featuring in the files is not a sign of wrongdoing. But Keir Starmer says that he followed all due process, and his ethics advisor has ruled that there's no case to answer, despite those Tory complaints. So.
Yeah, and I think this is the one thing they can get around, and I think that is right, because if you are a political appointee, you don't have to go through sort of the rigorous interview process or the same sort of checks that would probably have to go through if you are a civil servant or if you're within Whitehall. So there is a get out, but it just shows you that Keir Starmer took a gamble. Perhaps they didn't ask enough questions because they didn't want the answers to come back, and that's why they wanted to make that choice.
By the way, if you're asking questions about that picture of Andrew Epstein and Mandelson inside the Daily Mail, they helpfully annotate what you're looking at with arrows pointing to Epstein, saying he's wearing casual power clothes, and they usefully point out the Star Spangled Banner mugs on the table. A bit strange. Let's have a look elsewhere inside the Mail, Shona, because 2/3 of us stay up late just to get some me time. I am definitely in that 2/3. I hope Mrs. Barbette isn't watching right now. she probably realises. Do you do that?
Well, I live alone, and yet I still stay up late enjoying the me time. It does mention that 27% of people are simply more productive at night, and I'd probably put myself in that category. And it's interesting to see the breakdown of this, because it says that of Gen Zs and millennials are more likely to keep working into the early hours. But I suppose you've got to think about the demographics of the households. If you've got flatmates, then the me time will only come when you're in your own room, not using the kitchen, not using the common areas. It doesn't really mention here, so it's not very good for you. It's not very good for your body clock. Everyone says you should be going to bed earlier. So, I can totally understand, especially people with children, thinking, finally, it's just me. But you're sitting scrolling on your phone and you can't really call it quality time, probably.
Body clock is a bit of a trigger word around here because when you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But are you productive when you stay out late?
No.
Or are you...
No.
It's about entertainment.
Catatonic.
We're out of time. See you both next hour. Thanks for the moment. Thank you.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?